Hello there everyone. So I had an idea and I was like, I kind of miss making videos and stuff, but animation is very time consuming and I mean, some of you know that I do it as a full-time job, so like doing it for YouTube now is quite knackering and I usually don't really have the energy to do it anymore, so I was kind of like, well, there's this artist I like who kind of just like draws and does stuff and then he just kind of talks about what's on his mind, and it could be about anything. He's just kind of rambling and talking to his audience a bit. And I thought I'd try something like that out because I thought, I mean, people might not like it, but I kind of like the idea of doing it, like a weird little like mental mind diary of what I'm thinking about, what I've been doing recently, and just doing that while I draw something. Now, while I'm speaking now, right now, I'm actually working, so I can't show that in the video, but I will have like a recording of me drawing or something that I have drawn in the background instead. I may change that later. It's kind of nicer and more organic to like actually have the same footage and like audio at the same time, but usually while I'm working I'm just drifting off into mind space and just thinking about stuff and getting distracted, so I'm kind of like, it might be nice just to like chat into a little video diary for a bit while I'm like working through these sort of tedious work shots. Because as much as I love animation, I mean, oh, it does drag. So it's nice to like, oh, I'll try this to see like fit something else into that time at the same time. And I usually like to multitask to keep me like focused on something, like usually watching stuff while animating, you know, all that stuff, so it's like nice to talk and animate at the same time. But anyway, yeah, I thought I'd give this a go. People don't like it, that's fine, just wanted to try it. I quite like watching these sort of videos myself, so I was like, I'll try making them and see what happens. They're gonna be a bit rambly though, because I tend to be a bit rambly. But well, anyway, I thought we'll do like some kind of themes with these, like I'll talk about something specific that I've been interested in recently or that I've been looking at, or you know, stuff like this. And something that's been on my mind a lot recently is cats, and that's, you know, not a surprise. That's I mean, for a long time cats have been taken up a large part of my brain, but especially recently because I've actually decided that I want to get one myself. I did grow up with cats. My childhood cats are still around, Chester and Smudge. They're with my parents. They're 15 now. They're getting there, but they're still doing good. But yeah, I moved out of home properly in like 2018 is when I properly moved away from home. I did kind of move out of home before that, like 3 years before that for uni, but my uni was really close to home, so I'd basically go back on weekends to like work and see the cats and stuff, so I kind of moved out, but like I fully properly moved away from home in 2018 when I moved to Manchester, which is a big city in the UK. I live originally on the south coast of the UK, so of England, so that was a long move for me, but it was nice. But anyway, yeah, ever since then, you know, there's that sadness when you move away from home, when you move away from your family and your animals, that you're like, man, I'm so used to being around pets and suddenly not being around pets anymore. It's like really sad. Like suddenly there's just not like sorry, there's not just a guy I can bother anymore. Like, I used to go over to my cat Chester and like, you know, just place a hand on him and see what he does. just like stares at you with that cat face. So yeah, ever since then it's kind of just like trying to fill a cat-shaped hole in my heart. But of course, when you work in animation, you usually have to move quite often. So I was like, you know, having to move on a yearly basis, almost, you know, always into rented accommodation is not exactly the most cat-friendly position you can be in. So of course, I never really thought about getting a cat. I was just kind of like, let's try some other stuff. So like, I actually got some snails at the end of my time at uni because my friend had accidentally bred them and needed to cull the babies, so I offered to be at home for 2 of them. So that started my sort of snail keeping, and I still have a snail now. So yeah, like keeping snails and bugs was sort of like my first attempt to fill the cat-shaped hole, where like I had the 2 snails initially, and as I like adapted in my snail keeping, the little tubs got bigger, and I started adding things like springtails and isopods as like cleanup crews, and now they're like their own little they have their own sort of bioactive home. And I still have that, so I just have like a box of my one snail Comet and all of his dairy cow isopod friends that have bred a crazy amount. I don't know what to do with them, but they're very happy in there. I also have rats at the moment. I have 3 rats, used to be 4, but they're very short-lived little guys, bless them. So like, me and my boyfriend, when we moved in together 2 years ago, I was kind of like, he's had rats before, and the way he described them always sounded super great. So last year I was like, hey, let's get some rats. It'll be like a good sort of like proper starter pet for us. So we got some rats, and they've been amazing little animals, such like affectionate, charming, sweet, smart little animals. But yeah, they're very, very short-lived. They only live 2 years. So one passed, and that like sparked something in me. I was like, sweet Jesus Christ, I have like a lot of pet love. Like, I've got a lot of space in my heart for these animals. I very much want something that's not going to live for more than 2 years. That is going to live for more than 2 years. I mean, you know, I want something that won't die at a year old. Because, good lord, it was very difficult and it was heartbreaking, as you can imagine. I mean, we knew what we were signing up for, but still it doesn't prepare you for the, oh my god, you know, the grief. You like, it's like only a year with this animal, but it's like, oh my god, it felt like we'd had him for ages, you know. But yeah, that sort of triggered me into like, okay, I think I'm ready to get a cat now. I think I definitely want a cat sometime in the near future. It was fair enough putting it off when I was a student and when I was like in my like early 20s, but now I'm almost 27. Like I want to start my life now, you know? I kind of want to like, I don't want to keep putting things off. I'm at that point where I'm like, I can afford it. I'm relatively stable with where I am. I'm getting older. I don't really want to put off life that much longer. So I'm kind of like, I want to take the plunge. I want to get a cat soon. Next year, like when the rats have passed, bless them. Obviously you can't really have a cat and rats together, but when the rats have passed, we'll seriously think about getting a cat. Because just been trying to fill this cat-shaped hole for so long. I think it's finally time to fill it. I think I'm ready. It'll be good. So I started my search, and really, getting a cat is generally not conceived as being that difficult, you know. I keep hearing about, like, you know, in the States, you basically just like blink and a cat appears on your doorstep. You just like, there's just stray cats all over the goddamn place, and it's not really like that here. We still get stray cats and like some colonies here and there, but it's not as excessive as it is elsewhere in the world. England is such a tiny, densely packed country that it doesn't really, they don't really spread uncontrollably as much. They do exist though, they do exist. There's plenty of shelters here with plenty of cats needing adoption, and I've had a good old look at them and my heart yearns. However, the problem I have is, I have two problems. Problem number one is that I'm very much an indoor cat person. That's a whole nother thing to talk about, but I'm a bit iffy about outdoor cats. Obviously grew up with them. It's standard to have outdoor cats here. It's a cultural norm to have an outdoor cat, and I totally get it, but with the modern day, it seems a bit silly to me to have free roaming cats when you can't like monitor them and anything can happen to them, and they damage wildlife populations quite a bit, so I'm kind of like, no, I just want an indoor cat, you know, it's so much less stress just knowing where your animal is all the time. Like, I can't imagine just letting them go outside, not seeing them for an entire day, and you're just like, what the hell are they doing? But that's a conversation for another day. Maybe I'll make a video just honing in on that instead. But very much an indoor cat person, and the shelters here are very much outdoor cat places. So if you say apply for a cat, for a shelter cat, and you mention that you're a one-bed flat with no garden, they will not even consider you a lot of the time. Unless this cat has like FIV or something, or it has a special condition in that it would be too dangerous for it to go outside. You will not be considered. They think it's cruel, so they're like, no, if you don't have a garden, you're not getting this cat. And I'm like, well, shit. Okay, well that kind of narrows down my choices a lot. My second problem, aside from the indoor cat problem, which kind of has to unfortunately make me sort of look away from shelters altogether, is that my partner is allergic to cats. Which, you know, you'd think, well, that kind of erases the whole thing then. You just can't get a cat, you're allergic to cats. And yeah, but he's kind of mildly allergic, he's not super allergic, and we're both really into the idea of getting a cat, so plenty of people who are allergic have cats. You know, it's like, it's one of those things where you just kind of don't care if you're allergic. Like, I thought I was mildly allergic at one time, because I was back with my parents over COVID, and I was just always itchy and sneezing, but it might have been hay fever. I don't really know what it was, but I thought I was allergic to cats for a bit, but I was kind of in the mindset of like, I don't really care. And my boyfriend is very accommodating, and he's very sweet, and he still wants a cat, but obviously I don't want to put him in that sort of discomfort for the majority of his life. We have heard from a lot of people that, you know, they just kind of put up with it anyway, and they eventually like become sort of tolerant to their own cat. They're not really allergic to their own cat anymore. So that is a path we could take, where we could just like adopt a cat and just see how it goes. But I'm scared that it won't work out, and I don't want to put a cat through that stress. So that meant that my option there was to look for hypoallergenic cats. Now that is a whole nother thing. A whole nother can of worms. So, because of all this, because I've been in like super cat mode the last few months, sorry, I lost the train of thought. I've been heavily looking into and researching hypoallergenic cats, what I've learnt is that I feel like most like websites that advertise them, well, not advertise it, they like list them, they're like, whoa, top 10 hypoallergenic cats, and it's like got a list of 10 random breeds. Usually you see some reoccurring breeds there that you see all over the place, but most of those are bull, as you can probably expect. It's kind of just, I don't know, an excuse to write an article and get clicks and get more people to buy these breeds. But most of them are kind of just spouting shit. So like a lot of those that I saw, a lot of them would list like Russian blues, Siamese, stuff like that. And I think their sources are usually like, these cats have quite dense fur that doesn't shed quite as much. Like tightly packed fur. But from what I've seen on like breeders' pages, they're like, this is a rumor, we don't know who came up with this, but if people come to you asking about our cats being hypoallergenic, you know, don't lie to them, be like, these are no more hypoallergenic than your regular moggy. So I've come across a lot of stuff like that where a lot of it's just a lie, because I think hypoallergenic was just a buzzword at some point. But that doesn't mean they don't necessarily exist, because I think what some people get confused with is like hypo means less, right? Hyper means more, hypo means less. So hypoallergenic means like less allergenic. It doesn't mean not allergenic at all. Like a lot of people are like, oh, hypoallergenic cats don't exist, every cat triggers allergies. And it's like, yeah, that's what hypoallergenic means. It doesn't mean no allergens, it means less. And they do exist. Apparently, anyway. I think the only legitimate hypoallergenic breed are the Siberian. Because I think it was proved that they, like, this isn't meant to be an educational video or anything, it's just me rambling, so I'm not gonna, like, cite any sources or anything, so it could be, this is just from what I've seen, but, Siberians produce less FeLD1 than other breeds, and FeLD1 tends to be the thing most people are allergic to in cats. It's a protein that's found in their saliva, and all cats have it. But Siberians apparently create much less than other cats, which is why allergic people tend to get Siberians, and it tends to work out really well for them. So I'm pretty sure Siberians are like legitimate hypoallergenic cats. All the other breeds that I've come across, I think they don't necessarily produce less FeLD1. I think that's also sometimes from like just a cat by cat basis, not necessarily a breed basis, but some cats will produce less FeLD1 than others, and that's just like by chance. That's just dependent on the cat, which obviously you can't really judge and plan and buy around. So, but that leaves Siberian as an option. The other breeds that are usually listed, such as like Sphinx and the Rexes. Bengals are usually listed. Burmese are listed a lot as well. I don't know why, but like these are usually only listed on like these like random websites that are not scientifically linked at all. But those cats are usually listed because of a fur thing. So it's not that they produce less FeLD1, but it's more that like their fur behaves in a way that spreads it around less. Like in terms of the Sphinx, obviously it doesn't shed any fur, so it spreads the protein around in the house much less than the others. They do still sweat though, so they are still spreading their glorious sort of cat juices around, but you know, it's not, they're not shedding fur everywhere, and it's not clinging to your clothes and your face and everything. So that, it does help in that sense. Like, they still produce the protein, but they're not, it's harder for them to spread it around the house, so it's less of an irritant. And that's kind of similar with the Rexes, I think, where like the Rexes do shed, but they have just one layer of coat instead of the usual 3. They just have like the downy coat, which sheds less than a normal coat. So it's similar in that sense. And so I was kind of using those guys as a starting point, Sphinx and Rexes, because mostly because I really like the look of them. Like I like Siberians, but I'm actually like not a huge fan of really fluffy cats. I think they're beautiful, but they're not really my thing. So I feel like if nothing else worked, I'd, beggars can't be choosers, I'd go for a Siberian. But they also tend to be hard to find and very expensive. So I was like, let's look at these other guys. Not to say that these guys aren't expensive, but anyway. I like how the Sphinx and the Rexes look a lot, especially the Sphinx and the Cornish Rex, because they have that kind of like long face and big ears, kind of like oriental type face, which I really like. So first I was looking at Sphinx, because I was like, well, that's a no-brainer. Sphinx can't spread fur around everywhere, so it'll be less of like an irritant. And I was looking very heavily into Sphinx for a while, and I was dedicated to the Sphinx, and I contacted a few breeders, asking them questions about it, and also I visited a breeder just to hang out, just so we could hang out with the cats and see if we can get, see if we, up any allergic reactions. And they were fine, like we were totally fine. My boyfriend didn't sneeze or feel irritated at all, which was great, so we were like, oh, awesome, okay, we can get a Sphinx. Sphinx has passed. Sphinx is good. I mean, again, that can change from like a cat by cat basis. Maybe every cat will trigger differently. But anyway, we're feeling hopeful. Sphinx didn't trigger it. It's a good start. However, I joined like a lot of like Sphinx clubs, and like I've been like horribly into like groups on Facebook. Like I've never browsed Facebook so much in my life before, like having pets, because the Facebook groups have been just so informative and so like easy to ask questions. So like back in the day I joined like snail groups, and then I was in rat groups, and now I'm in loads of cat groups just to like ask questions, and like it's nice to eavesdrop on people's conversations and questions to see like what are common problems with certain animals. I'm actually in a lot of dog groups too, even though I don't plan on getting a dog anytime soon. I'm in a lot of groups for my favourite breeds just to like eavesdrop on their issues. But anyway, I was in a bunch of Sphinx groups, including the Sphinx Cat Club in the UK. Because usually, from what I've discovered, it's best to join the official like breeder cat clubs, right? Like the GCCF cat clubs, which is, I think that's the British cat club, and then there's Tika, which is I think the worldwide cat club, whatever. Joined a few Sphinx cat clubs. I realised just how common it is for them to get HCM, which is a horrible heart condition where I think it's like the walls of the heart thicken, and it makes it harder and harder for the heart to pump blood around, and it just slowly gets worse, and it's fatal, and there's no cure for it, none. There's like medication to prolong life and like help the heart out, but there's no way to get rid of it. And it seems like this is really common in Sphinxes, and I was like, shit, like, these guys were looking so good, like, I looked up, all their specific care requirements, like they have to have usually a bath every now and then to make sure their skin doesn't get gross, and make sure they're not too sweaty, like clean between their paws and their ears and all this. And I was like, I don't care about that, that sounds great. I love the thought of like caring that much for a cat, I don't mind high maintenance pets, I just like an excuse to hang out with the animal. Like it's a hobby for me to look after animals. Which is why I got all these bugs, because it was a fun challenge to look after these bugs. But the HCM thing is very hard to overlook. It's like most Sphinx owners all good Sphinx breeders and most Sphinx owners should be scanning their Sphinx yearly, like at a cardiologist, to try and like find HCM early before it gets horrible. And one, it can be really hard to find a good cardiologist, and two, that gets very expensive. And it's like, oof, this is, I mean, I don't necessarily mind, you know, paying to look after this cat, obviously, but it's like, that just sounds like a lot of added stress. Like, already with the rats, the reason why I was so triggered into looking for cats is that I've realised how stressful rats are and that they could die any second, you know. They're such sickly little animals and they only have 2 years. So once they hit 1 year or even less than that, they could be susceptible to anything. Like they tend to get tumours really easy and respiratory diseases, infections, and my poor guy who was only a year old, he died from megacolon, which is basically like the colon stops working and he gets so constipated and he just can't go anymore. And it's like, good lord, like this could happen any time in the rat's life, and that's it. And I was kind of like, nope, if I want a cat, you know, I want it to live 15 years or more, hopefully, with very few problems, you know. I think I've been cursed by like my parents' cats who just never had issues ever. Like the Chester, my ginger one, he had like the slightest heart murmur when he was a kitten and it just went away and never came back. And I'm just like, oh man, like I love a Sphinx, but to think that this thing, they have this horrible health condition that could pop up at any time and cause death at any age, it's like, this is what I'm trying to avoid, right? So they're not completely off the table, but they have been knocked down quite a bit, because I'm like, love a Sphinx, but good god, this heart condition sounds rough. And like, breeders do their best to try and avoid it, you know, they're scanning their breeding lot yearly to try and see if they have it, but you know, it can pop up at any time and it's hard. Like, you can't really predict when it's going to happen, and you can't see if it's going to happen. You only see it if you like catch it early. So they could breed from a cat and then, you know, like any number of years later it can pop up and those kittens have all gone to homes already, you know. Oh, so it's just like, okay, good god, okay, let's look somewhere else. So I started looking at Cornish Rex, and I absolutely love these guys, I've decided. They are such like the perfect like physical look for me. Like I've always really loved oriental cats, and these are very similar to that, where they have like the long faces and the tall ears, and they just have these big buggy eyes, and they're just great. And but apparently they're nicknamed like the greyhound of the cats because they're just so slender and so elegant, and I love that. So yeah, I've been very heavily looking into Cornish Rex recently. We managed to find a breeder close by to us who let us come over and visit and, you know, to do an allergy test, and that was totally good as well. No reactions out of either of us, which I'm very glad about, because I'm settled with this breed now. I'm kind of like, okay, good, right, I want this, you know, this is what I want, this is my ideal cat. They have very thin fur, so they don't shed as much around, and allergy test has gone well, so I'm pretty sure, yeah, I'm hoping for a Cornish Rex. We'll see what happens though. We'll see if I have to change my mind again. In regards to HCM, some places have said that Cornish Rex are also more susceptible to it, but to be honest, I found a lot less examples of that compared to Sphinx. Now, Sphinx are probably a bit easier to find examples of that, because Sphinx are actually super popular. I think like social media has really escalated their popularity, because people like post videos of them like wearing like hoodies and stuff, and people absolutely love that. And I think people just like love something that's ugly sometimes, like, you know, just an animal that looks like, you know, it's a bit out of the box, it's a bit different than your usual thing. So Sphinx are really quite popular actually. But yeah, that does mean that there's more opportunities to see what kind of problems they have because there's more people with them. And Cornish Rex are really uncommon here, which is strange because they're an English breed and they're like really cool, but I guess they just never took off. I mean, it's you don't necessarily want a breed to like succeed, right? Because you want more people to adopt from shelters, but it's like, that's strange, like these cats are so like cool and attractive and nice and they've got lovely personalities, but I guess they just, you know, just not enough people knew or were interested. Devon Rex, however, the other popular Rex, they are way more popular than Cornish Rex. I think that just because there's more of them around, more people have had an opportunity to have one. There's loads more breeders for Devon Rex I found. Like when I was joining like the Rex Cat clubs and I was looking at other stuff, I was like, God, there are way more Devon breeders than there are Cornish breeders. Which I found annoying, but I mean, if I have to get a Devon instead of a Cornish, I ain't gonna complain. They're still very, very cool cats. Just prefer the body type of the Cornish, to be honest, but Devons are still neat. I don't know if I'll have to do an allergy test with them as well. It's so goddamn hard to get an allergy test because you have to essentially like rely on the courage of strangers to let you into their home and sniff their cats, you know. It's just like, I've been emailing people just being like, oh, we've heard you breed these cats, can we just like come over and hang out so we can like see if we sneeze? It's doesn't always go successfully because it's, and you know, expectedly so, because it's like, people usually don't want strangers in their house hanging out with their cats, you know, it's like perfectly understandable. So I'm like, oh, I don't want to have to allergy test Devon Rexes. I'm pretty sure they have a similar coat to Cornish. So I think they'll still be okay. But anyway, I'm still looking at Cornish. There was that nice breeder that we went to visit that one time, and I'm gonna have her on my radar. And hopefully she will maybe keep my email address and let me know if she has kittens next year or something. It's also contacted, there's actually like the chief chairman big guy of the Rex Cat Club in the UK actually lives like basically like a 15-minute walk from me. He's right in my little pocket of South London. So I was like, holy crap, okay, so this one guy that everyone recommends, every time you mention Cornish Rex, his name comes up. He lives like next door to me, so I was like, wow, okay. the sort of small world, right? Small world. I found a lot of these breeders tend to be in the middle of nowhere because they've got like some big house in the country somewhere where they can afford to do the stuff. But no, this guy is right here in this big stinky expensive city. So I was like, perfect. So I've emailed him a few times, and I'm a bit worried because I don't know if it's just because sorry if you heard my Slack notification, by the way. Like, I don't know if it's just because, you know, it's like older people like communicating via text, but he's like, I'm sure he's friendly, but you know, like when you read someone's text and you're like, oh, he doesn't seem so friendly. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that's just a me problem. I think, like, I'm pretty sure he's fine. I'm just reacting too much, but like, yeah, I've been emailing him back and forth a bit, asking questions, and I'm like, oh, I'm interested in kittens next year if you'll have any available, and you know, he's very chill with that, and he's like, you know, I'm not a factory, you know, I just kind of have kittens as and when if my pets breed. You know, he breeds very responsibly. It's not like he's churning them out, which is good. But obviously means I can't can't plan ahead too well. But I guess I shouldn't have expected to anyway. I was just, you know, trying to put my foot in early, just because, you know, some places have like waiting lists and you can't just jump on them straight away and expect something. So I was like, okay, if I plant the seeds this early on, like a year in advance, then at least I've done something, you know, at least I've got the ball rolling and some people know my name and they know that I'm interested, so... Oh, there's that, yeah, and God, it's been a lot, I've even been to a cat show in that time. There was one sort of near me. There was one in London one weekend when I was really deep into this research, but I couldn't go to it because I was busy that weekend, so I was like, god damn it, it's like... this would have been perfect, but alas. But I did manage to go to another show that was a little bit further away, but still close enough, and that was great. And this breeder that I've been talking to was there, but he was also judging, so he was a bit busy, and I couldn't get a hold of him, but it's okay. There was one Cornish Rex owner there that I got to talk to, and she was lovely. There was only one Cornish Rex there in general. Like, I was expecting a few more, but I guess they really are just like such an unpopular breed. Well, not necessarily unpopular, but just hard to come by. There was a lady there with 3 Devon Rexes, and they were all lovely. And they were really nice, and they were like giving, you know, like, oh, you know, just get involved and ask around, and everyone's willing to help, and this and that. It's like, oh, cool. I'm just like, part of me was hoping them to like completely point me in the right direction. Like, okay, here's like 10 lists, is like a list of 10 breeders. These ones are all having litters next year, go talk to them. But of course it doesn't work like that. Oh, but yeah, it's been a lot. I'm kind of like one of those people who, like, once they have their mindset on something, I'll just like excessively research about it to the point where I like exhaust myself. So like, I've even done this before with just like I was shopping for a desk lamp. You know, that could be nice and bright for when I work from home and the room gets a bit dark. I still want to emulate kind of daylight because England does get dark. And I was just like excessively researching lamps for like a month, and I was knackered and I couldn't make any decisions because I was like, well, I know too much now. I'm overwhelmed with choice. I don't know what to do. And that was annoying, and I've done that so many times. I did that with a humidifier when I was just looking for like really cheap humidifiers for my plants. I ended up getting in way too deep and like just overwhelming myself. And of course I'm doing that with cats now, and like it's a good thing to do with cats because it's, you know, it's an animal, it's a living thing you're gonna look after and have in your home for like 20 years. So it's very important to research, but oh my god, I've like knackered myself out of like... I've also very good at sort of overcomplicating it for myself by like, you know, having this checklist, you know, like, oh, we're allergic, so we have to look for like hypoallergenic breeds and like this and that, and it's been knackering, but it's also been nice to like get my mind off things, you know. It's quite an exciting thing to research, so it's been a nice sort of time sink where it gets me, it keeps me happy, and it gets me excited and looking into stuff, so I guess I can't complain too much, because kind of started looking into the stuff sort of like, you know, when my first rat passed away, and another one is sick now with a tumour, so it's nice to get my mind off of that by doing this stuff. But it's also another horrible reminder as to why I'm like researching cats so heavily, because like it's because I love the rats so much that I want to invest that love in an animal that will actually live a long time, so I won't just get completely torn up emotionally every year or so with rats. Because oh man, they're such perfect little animals, dude. Like, if it wasn't for the short lives, I'd be very happy having them for years and years and years, like, just always having rats. And when I have a bigger place, I'd very much like to have rats as well as a cat, but obviously when I have the space to separate them. I feel like I can't right now. It's like, it's very emotional. It's like you invest so much emotion and love into this little guy, and he only lives for 2 years, if that, you know? My one that passed away was 1, literally. He passed away the year, a week after his birthday. And that sucked. And yeah, with this one with the tumour, I'm waiting to hear back from the vet to see what we can do about it, and like, you know, how long is that gonna last? And it's just like, wow, okay, I can't wait to have a pet who's gonna live a long time, and I don't have to worry about their health literally every month, you know. And also, I can't wait to be able to have pet insurance. Oh my god, can you imagine? Like, you can technically have pet insurance for rats, but it's like, because insurance companies are aware of how sickly rats are, they really sort of milk it, and the rat insurance is so expensive. So what most people do is they just put money aside for vet trips, and that usually is enough to cover it. But oh, I just can't wait to like be insured, so whenever something bad happens, you don't have to panic about spending money. At least it's like really nice peace of mind. Oh god, I'm sorry if you can hear Slack. But anyway, I think, oh my god, 40 minutes, Christ. I think that's all I got to say about cats. That's kind of what I've been doing recently, like just kind of like heavily researching these cats and like seeing what my options are and trying to plant some seeds. And that's kind of where I'm at right now, so hopefully with all the stuff that I've done, I've got a good idea of what I need to do. Hopefully next year I can maybe start my cat journey and finally have a cat in my house. It'll be great. Yeah, that's all I'll talk about with that for now. Let me know if you liked my rambling. I might do more of these. I'd quite like to. I've got a list of things I'd like to talk about, just like little rambly things, but we'll see how it goes. I'll see you next time.